everyone, it's Paul with the Getaway Gang and Ed over in Phoenix. How are you today, sir?
Hey, Paul, I'm great. How are you?
I am awesome, and we got lots going on. Of course, it is Cinco de Mayo,
Cinco
so
de
we
Mayo.
came prepared with our favorite Mexican beer, or at least one of
That's
them.
true.
And
I'm
so
drinking Sol Cerveza. It's one of our favorites. How about you, Paul?
this is Modelo. So
Modelo. All right, I'm going to drop my lime.
cheers.
Oh, the lime slice is a little big. Ah,
Get it in there.
love it. All right, here we
All
go.
right, here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
What's on the menu tonight, Paul?
Well,
Can't go out for tacos.
yes, I'm making one of my favorite dishes is very simple. It's just chicken street tacos. So they're little tortillas. You double up on the little tortillas. I've got had some chicken marinating all day, and put on some onion and cilantro, and just eat them right on up. It's going to be delicious. So.
Nice, nice. We're opting for the beans and rice, and I've been simmering some pork carnitas all day long. So we're gonna do that. I'll just leave it up to the family how they want it on that tortilla or just in a bowl because we try to keep those carbs down. But we're gonna
Well, that
home with
sounds
that.
delicious, my man. Well,
Oh,
we had a lot of news to chat through today because we haven't had a chance to do that in probably a couple months. But I know you had one thing also you wanted to highlight
well,
today.
yeah. Well, by the way, it's not just Cinco de Mayo. It's also Giving Tuesday, and I did want to remind everybody we do like to give to local charities, and right now is probably one of the best times to give that we've ever had in our lifetimes. I mean, there are so many organizations out there that just want to help, and uh, people need it. We need everything. People need PPE equipment. If you could just donate that, and there's tons of organizations out there that will accept donations that are trying to help battle with coronavirus. So if you have it to spare right now, I'm sure you're familiar with some kind of organization right now that you can give to. Today's a great day to do it, Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, I gave to my local one of my local food banks because they're really struggling. They have a relationship with the postal service, who normally does a really big food drive, a national food drive, with the bags they put in your mailbox. Well, they canceled that this year, so
Oh,
that was the one that I highlighted on Giving Tuesday. So I was glad to be able to do that. So
that's
thanks for bringing that up, Ed. That's awesome.
absolutely.
So, well, take us away with our first. We're going to just talk about. I told you this morning, Ed. There's plenty of negative news out there. Some of it's really hard to read, and I tried not to get too negative, but just we're going to highlight a few stories today with kind of where we're at in the travel world with news. So what's first?
Absolutely. As you know, it's the first show of the month, so this is our news episode. We had to pick out a few. It didn't take much cherry pick. Well, it took a lot of cherry picking actually to sift out all the negative news right now because there's a lot of bad things going on in the world. But we found some things that might be either somewhere neutral to positive outlooks on travel that we're going to share with you today.
Absolutely.
My first story here is about the new normal, which we've all heard. But as regards to travel, the U.S. Travel Association, in partnership with its suppliers across the industry, recently published a set of proposed health and safety guidelines that it says should be used as guidelines for travel-related businesses as the country emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, everybody's going to be opening, states are opening, businesses are trying to get back to work right now, and that goes for the travel industry right now as well. Which is including a couple cruise lines, and we'll get to that story a little bit later. But travel in the new normal is focused in 6 main areas. First one, the travel businesses should adapt operations, modify employee practices, and or redesign public spaces to help protect employees and customers. So that might include hand hygiene, utilizing PPE equipment such as masks and gloves, installing physical barriers such as transparent screens to provide proper separation between customers and employees. Physical distancing should also be encouraged. The second area, travel businesses should consider implementing touchless solutions where practical to limit the opportunity for virus transmission while also enabling a positive travel experience. including adopting contactless technologies, procedures for ticketing, identification, check-in, payments for goods, services, and automated ordering it and pickup for food for services. Uh, every segment of the travel industry should adopt and implement enhanced sanitation procedures specifically designed to compact the transmission of COVID-19, from policy implementing more frequent hand washing by all employees and sanitizing more frequently. Fourth, travel businesses should promote health screening measures for employees and isolate workers with possible COVID-19 symptoms and provide health resources to customers. And finally, travel businesses should establish a set of procedures aligned with CDC guidance should an employee test positive for COVID-19. While COVID-19 is not a foodborne illness, travel businesses should follow best practices in food and beverage services to promote health of employees and customers for obvious reasons. When serving food and beverage, travel businesses should follow the FDA's guidelines as well. So they're really stamping down on trying to get businesses to be prepared, even more so than in many cruise lines and other travel businesses have been in the past. So it's really good that they're taking some steps to try to be.
It's going to, I mean, yeah, it's going to be significantly more. And I'm starting to hear bits and pieces. Obviously, the cruise industry is still closed down and will be closed down for a while. But the airline industry is still open. And they're one that I'm reading, they're requiring masks on board. They're not serving food on board. They're already implementing some of these. So I think a lot of this stuff is going to be, like you said, the new normal until there's a vaccine and we're cured from this thing. But even some of it, I think, is going to stick behind. It always does. And for better or for worse. But I think for the most part, better. And I know some of the things like on cruise ships, I was hearing they were going to do away with anything that you touch anymore. So buffets are gone and they're, things like that. Just, pretty, big changes that we're just going to have to get used to.
No more buffets. Come on, Paul.
I know our breakfast buffet. I know.
Well, hey, why don't we break down a little bit further into some of the industries? Why don't you tell us about the airline industry?
Yeah, so let's talk about the airlines. Just a few little key stories, and this is a conglomeration of things that I've read over the last week or so. Like I said, a lot of the airlines are now expecting passengers to, not expecting, but requiring them to wear masks like you do when you go to the grocery store, that sort of thing, which I think is a good thing. I was reading that the Treasury Department has begun distributing payroll grants, because as you know, obviously the airlines are in deep, deep trouble. So the department actually paid out almost $3 billion on Monday in payroll grants to 56 airlines. And I was reading that 230 airlines applied for payroll assistance, and of those, the Treasury Department will award grants to all but the 13 largest carriers. And for those large carriers, they're offering like a 70-30 split, 70 grant and a 30 in a low interest loan, because again, they're just struggling for operating expenses right now. And I know everyone's like, I can't, I don't feel bad for the airlines. They've been profiting off of us for years, but they're a key part of any kind of travel and a key part of our country's economy. So it is what it is, and I'm glad to see some action being taken. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said, and I read this one, it was interesting, quote, "It's too hard to tell if international air travel will be opened up at all out of the United States and into the United States in 2020. He encourages Americans to focus on domestic travel this year as things start to open up. That's a pretty big statement right there. And I've seen it coming from a couple other sources as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how the remainder of the year plays out. Data is suggesting that demand for air travel may have hit rock bottom. And the numbers are still really bad, even though there's maybe a tiny uptick. During the week that ended May 3rd, the TSA screened, get this, a total of 981,000 people at airport checkpoints, total, period. And that includes passengers and crew alike. And even that 981,000 was up 27% from the previous week, which and up 43% from a couple weeks ago, the week ending April 18th, when the checkpoint throughput bottomed out at 684,000 people. So as you can see, imagine less than 1 million people, even this past week in the entire country, went through a TSA checkpoint. Even with the jump, throughput at TSA checkpoints last week was down 94% from 2019. So, I mean, the numbers are insane. Basically, you are only traveling in dire emergency right now, and that's what it boils down to. One other little stat, travel agents issued 81.8% fewer tickets during the week that ended May 3rd, compared with year-over-year declines in excess of 90%. Wow. During the previous 4 weeks. So we were up from 90% down to 81.8% down. So I know, it's improvement. It's something. And, I think a lot of people are, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit. A lot of people are looking to, when they finally do get to travel again, even maybe not flying somewhere, certainly not going out of the country.
Well, the airline industry is not just travel too. It's not just a travel industry. It affects all kinds of industries.
Of course.
It's the de facto way of going from place to place in today's world. And so if the airlines suffer, I mean, just to justify a little bit the amount of money that is going into bailing out some of these airlines, it's such a vital part of our everyday lives these days. So,
it is.
Yeah, I just got a notification that United is interested in is like looking into cutting about 30% of its management too, and expect a lot of these cuts and refinement and maybe even some closures of some airlines before this is all said and done.
Yeah.
But all these industries are going to be pretty decimated.
Yeah, it's true. Well, talk to us about some good news surrounding the cruise industries.
Well, you know what, Paul? We've been talking about the last few weeks about all these closures, cancellations, and then extending of deadlines. I think Carnival is one of the first to come out and actually give a deadline or a date, or at least a goal of getting back into service. And they've set that goal for a few of their ships for August 1st. Carnival plans to resume service on August 1st with sailings from Miami, Port Canaveral, and Galveston on 8 ships. It kind of a trial run to see how it goes. And then they're going to slowly ease in some other ships into service if this all goes well over the next few months. It's calling it the first phase of its resumption plan. The cruise line's operation pause will extend on all other North American and Australian markets through August 31st, with exception to a couple of lines, areas we'll talk about in a second. The cruise line said that any resumption of cruise operation is fully dependent on our continued efforts in cooperation with federal, state, local, and international government officials. And it also said it would engage experts, government officials, and stakeholders on additional protocols and procedures to protect the health and safety of our guests, crew, and the communities we serve. Obviously, probably implementing some of those travel industry guidelines that we talked about in the first story. The line also announced additional cancellations beyond August 31st on the Carnival Spirit, which canceled its Alaska cruises from Seattle, as well as Vancouver Honolulu cruise on September 25th, and the Honolulu Brisbane Trans-Pacific cruise on October 6th. And that has a lot to do with Canada and their border closures, among others.
Alaska cruising is not happening this year, period.
So unfortunately, even there is some bright, if yet dim, or sorry, that's funny. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, maybe a little bit dim, but it's coming. We will have some cruises, hopefully, fingers crossed, by August.
And I think what's interesting about this, what my takeaway from it is, it's every announcement, and Lord knows as travel agents, we've been inundated with announcement after announcement, week after week, things change. And the only thing, everything has been reactive. It's like, okay, well, we got to kick the can a month out, This is the first plan. And again, it's still a plan and only a goal, but it's the first one that I've seen that I think they've taken time to be proactive in the way that they're going to reopen, and they're going to have a very limited. They've worked with these 3 ports, the 2 in Florida and 1 in Texas, and they're going to try it out and see how it goes. And we all obviously hope it goes well. So,
Yep.
like you said, there's going to be a lot of changes. I think the buffets are gone. I think they may be underselling the ships. They may, reduce capacity, and they're obviously going to be doing a lot of health screening every time you get on the ship, not just when you board the first time. So.
Absolutely. It's exciting to put a goal out there, but take it with a grain of salt.
Of course.
As you've noticed with this disease, it is unpredictable.
Yep.
So it's not guaranteed by any way, shape, or form that we'll have cruise ships operational by August 1st, but we certainly hope so.
Yeah, I mean, we hope so. And given what we've seen, who knows? It could be gone by September 1st, and it could be 10 times worse by September 1st. We just don't know. So
that's right.
But
Paul, how about brightening us up and letting us know what the world is thinking about travel right now?
Absolutely. I'll wrap up with an optimistic story of sorts. And it's about a recent survey that was conducted in partnership with U.S. Travel. And it does state that travelers are becoming more optimistic in their outlook of getting out and traveling some. Now, granted, it's a 1,200 person survey, and of those 1,200 people, 90% of them had travel or an event planned prior to COVID-19. So these are people that are already travelers. There is upward movement in those frequent travelers' outlook on having a vacation in 2020, but that barometer is moving very slowly. But they are, more than anything, as we mentioned before, we've all talked about how we're raring to get out. Now, we understand we're not going to do anything silly, not do anything dangerous, but as part of that and part of our desire and our wanderlust to get the heck out of our house, people are looking a lot closer to home. They're looking at car trips. They're looking at, regional locations here and domestically. And so they're not thinking about these grand trips, but that's a good thing. The other part of that that's interesting is domestic river cruises. So there are 2 companies now, American Cruise Lines and American Queen Steamboat Company, that they sail the Mississippi, they sail the Columbia and Snake Rivers. Those cruise lines, and actually Viking just got into that. They're starting in 2022, are selling those cruises. Domestic river cruisers, they're trending up. They've actually been doing pretty well with their sales for late, 2021 and beyond, and even late this year. And they, at least now in this survey, are trending neck and neck. And this is domestic river cruise lines with ocean cruise lines, because people, again, they want to stay closer to home, and the ships are smaller. They usually hold only a couple hundred people. So people are a little more open and excited about that kind of idea. Interestingly, the survey showed that travel deals are way down and low on the list in terms of important motivating factors for people right now. It's not about the deal as much as it is, something.
Get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah, exactly. They want to get out of Dodge and they don't want to go too far. So unfortunately, we're still seeing that more plans are being postponed. Before, or actually I should say more plans are being canceled that were only being postponed before. Yes. So there were the people sort of kicking the can, and now finally they're saying, I'm canceling it. We'll take another shot at it in the future. And the other bummer part of it is that business travel is still looking super flat. There is no uptick in terms of plans for business travelers to get out. And it makes sense. I think overall the workplace is going to change, and a lot of people that even didn't travel won't even be commuting anymore. They'll be working from home. So
that's an interesting point. I was going to bring that up about the airline travel, but I stopped myself. But, with the technology the way that it is, it already was being rendered moot for people to fly to other cities or something they could have just teleconferenced in.
And that's going to hurt the airlines.
It will. I don't know if the airlines are going to completely recover after all this when businesses turn their best practices into doing teleconferencing over actually having boots on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know you and I are going to continue to be positive in our outlook. We understand it's probably going to be many months before anything normal that we can consider normal can be considered, or if not, and we're fine. But we're here. We're going to continue to dream about travel and talk about it. and keep you up to date. We wouldn't have it any other way. We're going to have to be patient, and we need to be safe, and we don't need to do anything crazy. We need to protect each other, and certainly protect the most vulnerable among us. So, be smart, and don't do anything too crazy.
Right. How do you like my Corona beard virus here?
Yeah, your coronavirus beard.
Exactly, coronavirus beard. Yeah. I think it's kicking in.
Yeah, it's kicking in. It's getting real bushy.
All rolly here.
Too, I'm doing my best. I got the back of my hair is getting all bushy, and I know this may not seem like long hair, but for me it is. So, and it sounds like, at least in Los Angeles, California, it's going to be a while before even my hairdresser is able to open again. So
I'm kind of committed to letting it grow until either sports come back, or in some semblance, or cruising, or might be both. I think when the world reopens is when I'll consider trimming this thing again.
Well, it may be a little long. You may look like Rasputin.
Yeah.
This is all over. Well, I'll wrap it up. You made me think. And our buddy Steve last night pointed out, he said, "Hey, I'm desperate for baseball, and now they're showing South Korean League baseball that starts tonight." And it started last night. Unfortunately, it comes on. The games are at like 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. But if you're starved for sports, TiVo, the South Korean baseball, it's something at least. So.
Yeah, I was watching reruns of last year's PBA bowling tournament last weekend. So
we're all feeling the need for
something.
Exactly. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. And as always, we'll be back again next week with another show. To be determined what the topic will be, but it's always a lot of fun hanging with you, Ed, and talking travel, and with all of you as well. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe or click the link to join our VIP group, Facebook VIP group. Same if you're watching on our business page. Regardless of where you're watching, we're always here to answer your travel questions and to help you dream up your next trip. So until next time, stay safe and stay well, and we'll see you later.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.